I'm Esther Dillard on the Black Information Network, chatting with writers and authors who offer an added perspective for our listeners. This is The Color Between the Lines. On this edition of The Color Between the Lines, we're talking about business advice and what are some of the things that you could adopt to make yourself more of a success. Joining me is Kelvin G. Abrams. He is an entrepreneur and business owner who shares some pearls of wisdom in his latest book called Get Uncomfortable or Change Course. Welcome, Kelvin G. Abrams, to the BIN.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, Kelvin, I took a look at your website and I see that you are in your business right now. I look at your website, your Facebook page, and you run a really unique business called Tiki's Playhouse and something called Canine Coffee. It's kind of a combined thing. And I thought it was a unique concept. Can you talk about this business and what inspired you to open it?
Absolutely. So Tiki's Playhouse has been here for 15 years. And what inspired me was the loss of my dog. I had a Weimaraner who was, what was it? 11 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days old. And I had to put him down. So he was very much a puppy. And his name was Tiki. I'm a New York Giants football fan. So all my dogs are related to Giants players. So his name was Tiki, named after Tiki Barber. And so I decided at that point in time, back in December 2007, to start a business and name it after Tiki. So I called it Tiki's Playhouse. We incorporated January 2008. And 15 years later, here I am. And during the process, I pivoted a little bit. I had a grooming area, which was my coffee shop that I'm in right now. And dealing with groomers after, 8, 9, 10 years kind of got to be a headache. And so I kind of said, what else could I do down here? And then at that point, I kind of looked at the stock market and you kind of just saw that the number 2 traded commodity was coffee. First was oil. Second was coffee. So it's a no-brainer. Dogs and coffee, kind of merge them together. So that's kind of where the concept came from. It's simple and plain, money.
Money, money, money. Well, it's really interesting because I thought, though, that the way you talked about your business starting in your book, it was kind of emotional. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how that emotion kind of drove you to make this business change and to start the business.
Yeah, so it was very emotional. I lost my dog. I was going through a rough time in my career at that point. And I thought about doing this. The funny thing is when I was in college, I thought about doing a business, and I've been an entrepreneur thinking in my mind my entire life. I just didn't know what it was. And then in college, I kind of started working on this doggy daycare concept. And so that's kind of where it came about. And so I had a lot of struggles in the very beginning, of course, like most businesses had a lot of struggle. But what kept me determined the first 5 years was my dog, Tiki. I had lost him at a very young age. It was my very first own personal dog that I had lost. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. I took it very personal. I cried a lot, and I told myself and I told Tiki, and I prayed to God that if he ever gave me the opportunity to start my business, that I would give everything I have and devote every time and every energy and breath to Tiki. And so here I am 15 years later, still devoting my business and myself to Tiki.
Wow. You write in the book how hard it was and how hard it is for entrepreneurs, especially Black entrepreneurs, to go from really an idea to actually making it happen. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it appeared that may be the reason why you named the book title, Get Uncomfortable or Change Course. Was getting uncomfortable one of the biggest obstacles that kind of held you back from making this decision?
I got to be honest with you. I've been uncomfortable my entire life. Growing up, I had a good childhood like most people. I had a decent childhood. Towards the end, it got a little hairy. Towards the end of maybe the last 5 years or so, it got a little hairy. But I've been uncomfortable my entire life. My parents raised us to work hard and to succeed and to never give up and to never quit. We were not allowed to quit sports. We weren't allowed to quit jobs. We weren't just allowed to quit. We had to deal with it and struggle through it. So I've been uncomfortable my entire life. And the business, Get Uncomfortable or Change Course, I've been writing that book since I was 18 years of age. And so again, it's something that I've dealt with my entire life. and I just didn't know when or how to put it on paper and talk about being uncomfortable. But yes, being in business is very uncomfortable. There's a lot of good days, bad days, ups, downs, and there's a lot of learning lessons that you have to be ready for, and some you're not going to be ready for. But every day is a learning lesson.
Well, for those of you who are just joining us, I'm Esther Dillard with the Black Information Network, speaking with the entrepreneur, business owner, and author Kelvin G. Abrams about his book, Get Uncomfortable or Change Course. You wrote about knowing your worth. And I thought this was a very interesting chapter, very good chapter, because it's something that a lot of people have a problem with, especially with the art of negotiation, something that I struggle with as well as for myself. What do you think that made you stronger in this area? And how did you determine your worth and use it in the art of negotiation?
So that's probably the biggest point in my book is starting out with basically minimal business knowledge. You are taken advantage of, and I was taken advantage of. And so I lost a lot of money. But through my losses, I've learned. So my thing is sure, I may lose a lot of money, or sure, I may lose a deal, but as long as I learn from that deal, and I have learned from that deal, and over the years, it has strengthened me. So it's not something that has come from within. It's just I've learned from my mistakes, and I'm not going to go back to making those mistakes. So that's the only answer I can really honestly say is just learn from your mistakes. And boy, I had a lot of them, financial mistakes that once or twice I thought I was going to go into bankruptcy and just end it all. But I figured it out. And that's also about being a business owner, is pivoting and figuring things out. And that's what I just learned to do over the years is anytime I have an issue or a problem or struggles, I learn to figure it out. I just put two and two together and just kind of learn to figure it out. So I'm always pivoting.
Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of people do. You and many business entrepreneurs, they advise that you get a coach, but not all coaches are equal. And how did you find your coach or coaches, and what did they teach you?
I have a couple of people I refer to as coaches, and they came about from friends who noticed that I was struggling emotionally, mentally, and just struggling. And there's one I talk about in my book an awful lot. His name is Uncle Willie. He's a great guy. He's not related to me, but my friend, my dear friend Sarah, introduced me to Uncle Willie, and he's become a friend first and foremost. But he's also a business owner himself, and him and I have gone through a lot of the struggles early on. So I lean on Uncle Willie a lot to support me, help me for advice. I actually went out and sought a business coach to help me out as well too for a while. So I've worked with a business coach. I now have a publicist slash marketing person that I work with as well, and I consider her a mentor and a coach. So the people that I like to try to bring into my network and bring into my family, if you will, I consider all of them coaches because I like to hire people that are uh, professionals and experts in their field and in their craft. And so that's who I have working around me. And it started with Uncle Willie. I'm sorry, it started with Ed Knox back at SCORE, Small Business Administration. They have a organization called SCORE of retired business owners that come and help people. And Ed Knox, I remember him, and he started me on this long journey of mine here. And he was very tough on me. He was extremely tough, but I'm here today, 15 years later, because I sought a coach from SCORE. And most people think that it's going to cost you, but it's absolutely free. And that's what they're there for. Small Business Administration, the SCORE team. That's what they're there for, to help you out.
Well, throughout this book, and I thought it was very good and interesting that you put these questions at the end for people to kind of do that deep dive work. Well, what do you think is the toughest exercise for yourself and why?
The toughest exercise for me is shutting it off, turning it off. I don't sleep at night because I'm such a creative person. I can't shut it off. So I've talked to my doctor, I've talked to therapists, and they're trying to put me on all this medicine. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to be encouraging the creativity, not telling me to stop. So the hardest thing for me is to turn it off at night. I literally sleep with either my iPad or a piece of paper or a pencil next to my bed. And a lot of my ideas come in the middle of the night when I'm sleeping, and my brain is able to think and process. And I start writing stuff down. And then, of course, the next morning you have to decipher it. But, you know, that's where most of my creativity comes from. So I don't necessarily know if I'm able to shut it off or shut it down or calm down, but I manage it.
Mm.
So that's the only answer I can give you is I manage it. But I don't ever shut it off. It's not something that I can, not yet, at least, not yet. I like to say one of my famous quotes I like to use from Robert Frost's poem is, I have miles to go before I sleep. So I have miles to go before I sleep. So I can't turn it off.
Well, final word, the number one message that you want readers to come away with when they finish your book.
Oh, boy, let's see. There's so much, but how can I put it in a 10-second reel here? The number one thing I really want people to realize, and I'm going to show this book here if I may, is the most important thing is to be prepared to get uncomfortable. Being in business is not about handing a business card out. Hey, I'm a business owner. It's a lot more than that. And I want to tell your listeners and viewers and anyone out there who reads and picks up my book, this book is designed and made to smack you in the face with a dose of reality. So it's a wake-up call. So if you're interested in starting a business, I highly advise you read my book, Get Uncomfortable or Change Course, because it will let you know what's in store for you when you decide to walk down this lonely path. And I tell you, it's a lonely path, but it's not for everyone. So get uncomfortable or change course.
Well, thank you, Kelvin G. Abrams, for joining us on the BIN. This book is called Get Uncomfortable or Change Course. That's it for this edition of The Color Between the Lines. I'm Esther Dillard on the Black Information Network.